Hi, everybody. I'm here. I don't have as much energy as I do the first time. This has completely drained me in this moment, but I've got it back. Everything is okay. I'm excited for the final episode of DnDTime Worlds Season 1. This evening. It's going to be, I think, a lot of fun. I got something pretty wacky planned today. We'll see how it goes. But before we get into that, for anyone or for everyone who's been watching throughout the last several weeks, in thinking about what I wanted to do for the last episode, because wait, really? You still can't hear me? Oh, okay. Don't scare me like that, Shiba. Oh no. I got so scared. In thinking about what I want to do for the last episode, because there's been so many people that have contributed and done such awesome things with this worlds, because normally what we do on DnDTime Worlds is build a homebrew world together. We have completed the wonderful world of Empyrion, where the gods play the world below as if it were a board game. And as I said at the beginning, we're going to do some kind of play session for the finale rather than just do the world building aspects. So that's what I wanted to do, but I wanted to think of a way that we could really kind of get everybody involved. Wonderful. The world is pretty screwed up. I mean, yeah. And because I didn't want to just kind of exclude some people from getting a chance to enjoy this world that we've all worked on together. So I got something pretty fun planned, which we're going to get into more or less right away. We're just going to need maybe a second go on break. But before we get into it, preemptively, in case there's people that have to go before we finish up, I want to say at the beginning, thank you to everyone. And I'm going to say this again at the end. Thank you to everyone who contributed to the world and made DnDTime Worlds what it has been. It's been a lot of fun, and I hope everyone has fun with this tonight. So, oddly enough, without further ado, I'm going to be going to the intro screen again, as I just need just a second to set up what we have for tonight. So we'll be right back, and we will begin what is going to be a play session in the land of Empyrion. So just a moment, y'all. Let us get into it. I realize that you may have been seeing a bit more than I meant to at the beginning, but let us begin tonight's adventure. Tonight we'll be telling the tale of one of the bloodiest battles in the history of the land of Empyrion. An event known as the Battle of the Iron Veil. It started out relatively simply, as one of Tizel's war bands ventured forward into the Iron Vale to strip some of the iron trees for metal, to continue to make their weapons and their armaments and so on and so forth, when they encountered a group that they did not expect. A group of Palin's Modrons there doing the exact same thing, stripping the metal for their own purposes. A conflict ensued, and slowly over time it increased in scale as both sides sent for reinforcements. Both sides garnered more and more allies, and increased, well, the scale of the battle on an incredible amount. It wasn't long before all of the gods, save for one, through one minion or another, had some type of hand in the fray. But we're going to start our story on a little bit of a smaller scale. We see a single soldier, a member of Lux's forces, walking down a dirt road towards the Iron Vale forest. In the distance, they can hear the sounds of conflict, of soldiers crashing, of magical explosions, as this battle is starting to come into full swing. The soldiers of Lux's army are weak and ill-equipped to deal with it. But as the battle goes on in the distance, they see a terrible thing coming towards them. Rising up out of the Iron Vale forest that they're walking into, a great red dragon. An individual of Tizel's group, known as Crandor, the Tyrant. This terrible red dragon begins moving toward their forces, and as they panic and run and go to move away from it, well, there's not much that a lowly human can do against a great ancient red dragon. So, in this poor man's, this one soldier's life, the last thing he sees and feels is a sharp burst of pain, a bright light as the fire erupts from Crandor's mouth, and then black. It isn't until some time later, the battle's still raging on around him. It's begun to rain at this point. He awakens again, looking up and around him. Leaning over him is a man. He has scraggly, greasy black hair covering over his face. He wears deep, kind of stained brown robes, stained with the blood of the many, many people that have already fallen on this battlefield around him. As this man stirs from what he assumed was his final moment, he looks down at his hands and sees that the flesh has been burned clean off. He is, at this point, only a skeleton. The man leaning over him looks to him and says, "Ah, I see you're up now." He slaps him on the cheek a couple of times. The man feels no pain as he does so. "Welcome. The mistress always had such strange taste in servants. But, I suppose if you're what she wanted, then who am I to argue? She's got big plans for you, you know. You should be hearing from her soon." And he did hear from her soon, as the voice of this individual's god, Corrosia, began to ring in his ear. Of course, for all of you who have been following DnDTime Worlds, you're aware that Corrosia is a god of undeath, and she does favor a particular oracle. One known as Random Skeleton, I see Shiva saying, Random Skeleton 5624. Or, in this case, Random Skeleton 4562. I'd like to welcome you all to Twitch Plays Corrosia Simulator 2018, where you'll be piloting this skeleton through the legendary Battle of the Iron Vale. I will be taking your commands from Twitch chat as you try and move a skeleton and cause as much chaos as possible throughout the world. I don't know how this is gonna work, so it's gonna be fun, but just the way this is going to work, at least in terms of mechanically, the group of you in Twitch chat will be playing the role of the chaotic brain of Corrosia, our resident god of undeath, trying to do as much evil as you possibly can throughout the world as we kind of move through here. And let me make sure that everything is centered properly. Can't seem to get that to line up right where I want it. Whoop. Whoop. In order to do so, I have Twitch chat here for me to look at, and what I need y'all to do is, if you're going to have our skeleton friend here do something, what you can do is type in Twitch chat. If you want him to take some action, type A and then a colon and then say what you want the skeleton to do, and I will go through and do it. Type S and then a colon if you want them to say something, or type Q in the colon if you have a question for me who's DMing this, for things that you think that you should know in character about what's going on in your surroundings and the battle at hand. And without further ado, and additionally, we'll get to some more kind of rules that I've thought up as they come up, but if you're taking actions, this person does have a degree of free will. Oracles are not completely controlled, so if your action is just to kill the oracle every 2 seconds, then I might just intervene. Alright, so, A, attempt any form of magic. Corrosia calls upon the skeleton to try some type of magic. The skeleton shoots his hands out and tries to will into consciousness some lightning bolt, some fire blast, but unfortunately they are a mundane skeleton and have no abilities. The individual before you, a necromancer by the name of Asher Pyle, another of Corrosia's oracles, looks at you. I generally don't find anyone who has any particular skills for this challenge. She says she likes a challenge. I don't entirely understand it myself. Find explosives. You begin surveying the battlefield around you. You've heard several explosions coming from all around, but generally speaking, you don't see anything just lying in the immediate surroundings. And to describe your immediate surroundings, you see you are amongst the Iron Veil Forest, a forest that is deep within Oniaras, the god of nature's territory, but was transformed via Vasto's magic into great trees of solid metal. Around you are the bodies of various individuals from various different camps and factions, all kind of piled into the space. You've heard explosions coming from around you. You don't necessarily know precisely where, but you know that there are definitely explosives that other factions are using on this battlefield. It'd be a question of beginning to seek them out. Additionally, as you can see here beneath me, I have not mentioned this yet, I have set up that the prison of the dice god, as it were. If you go onto our Discord and I ask you to make a roll, there may be moments where we need you to roll. It's just going to be a flat d20 for everything, but you can type in that Discord your rolls if you desire to do so, or you are needed to do so. Seek the warm flesh of the unbelievers. Alright, you begin to tramps and go ahead actually and reflected, why don't you go ahead and roll me a d20 as you're making a perception check in the surrounding forest area. And you gotta do exclamation point roll, and maybe I should put that up on the screens for everyone in Discord to see it, but I believe it's exclamation point roll space d20, if you want to do that. I see you've rolled a 10. Alright, as you're looking around the space, the necromancer before you kind of waves you, no problem, kind of waves you on and goes about doing other tasks along the battlefield. You see the first two individuals that are walking around. You see a man standing before you, tall, kind of broad armor, kind of a great sword at the back, and it looks to be a member of Tizel's warband. It appears to be an orc that is before you. At his side, much smaller, kind of looking up at him, you see what looks like a very, perhaps a squire. It appears to be a goblin. They're conversing back and forth. As you kind of come up to them, you see they look at you. One of them looks at the other. Did we have any undead in our forces today. I don't think we brought any. The goblin looks up. No, I don't think so. You, compelled by Corrosia's might, this individual says, these heretics will be quite tasty. The goblin and the orc look at each other and then back at the skeleton and all right, and they begin stepping forward. The orc pulls the greatsword off of his back and begins moving towards this. You, the skeleton. What do y'all do? All right. As of yet, you don't seem to. You have not picked up a weapon, but you jump forward. Go ahead and roll me a d20. Go ahead and roll me a d20, Jericho. In the Discord. A 3! Alright, so you run forward, and as you do so, you go and swing at the orc, which, as you kind of go to hook your claw into it, your bony skeletal hands, not nearly as much power as you were expecting to kind of be behind the swing, not used to having this kind of skeletal body. Perhaps Corrosia is, but this individual isn't. And as the hand strikes, just part of the hand breaks off and shatters. The orc kind of looks down at you, chuckling, pulls out his greatsword. I'm gonna go ahead and... The orc's greatsword comes through, swinging downwards and cleaving through the skeleton straight in twain, and this individual skeleton's life goes completely dark. As you have now died as a collective, which means let me just get out my tool, and you wake up in a forest. Asher Pyle stands above you. All right, already on to another one, huh? Okay. Not like there isn't a bounty of them, my lady. You have a fresh skeleton. You're standing where you were at the beginning. You know where those orcs are. So we have a bunch of questions. Question 1, what month is it? Or, yelling at Asher, well, you have to go back, because that one died. What month is it? It is, of course, the month of Empyrion. It is a month when all gods have incredible power. Question, is orc meat too tough to bite into? No, orc meat is definitely could be bitten into by a skeleton. The issue was that it was wearing armor and you rolled very poorly. But it is possible for you to bite into orc meat if you so desire. A question, what is around you? As you're looking around you, the things that you see, like I said, you're in the Ironvale Forest, so there are all these tall iron trees. You can see smoke rising in the distance. You know from Corrosia's kind of... Corrosia's general knowledge of what's going on in this battlefield, there are encampments that are, of all of the major factions, save your own, have some kind of encampment set up somewhere around the battlefield where they've entrenched themselves and are waging war from. All of them are of different natures, but the question, you speak, give me a weapon. Give me a weapon, old man, you say to Asher Pyle. There's weapons all around you. Just pick something up from one of the dead bodies here. And he tosses you what appears to be a rusty broadsword that has started to get a little bit worse in the rain, perhaps from a fallen soldier of Lux's kingdom. Question, where can I find a gun? There are no guns in the world of Empyrion, Farfel. The closest thing to a gun would probably be a crossbow, and the answer is on the ground around you. So if you wish to pick up a crossbow, you could. Act tries to find some armor to improve our defenses. Absolutely. Roll me an investigation check. 16. Very good. As you begin moving forward and looking for any kind of piece of armor, you check the ground and you find, there's, for the most part, what you find is leather armor, as not a lot of these people are extremely well equipped. But as you're kind of searching and you do manage to find one thing, what that thing is you find some chainmail armor that seems fit to the frame of this particular skeleton. You don said chainmail and take some time, but on the whole, it looks like most people are just kind of too distracted to deal with the one skeleton that's kind of rifling through things. Act, search for a wizard separated from his battalion. Go ahead and make me either perception or investigate. Well, just roll me a d20. Since I've until you boost yourself up with other things, all rolls are flat. Alright, you don't see, as you're looking around, you see a battalion that's moving through the space, and they appear to be a battalion of Zeeth, the goddess of time. You can tell so by, their impeccable youth. All of them have this kind of glow about them of, early age. They were probably given additional life by Crandor. You know that there are always mages in these kind of battalions, as magic is one of the primary ways in which the people of Zeeth fight. However, currently, as you're kind of observing them from the distance, you can see that the mages are still very kind of much attached to the battalion. So you see them, but you'd have to find some way to kind of distract them and pull them off. Question, is there a way to boost our skills? You could find, as a skeleton, your skills are very much limited by what you are able to find. It is part of Corrosia's will. She enjoys a challenge, so causing as much chaos with a regular skeleton is very much the point. That being said, picking up items that might boost your skills or finding any kind of useful equipment throughout the map, that is absolutely doable, as you have already done, as you now have a much higher armor class than you would have. Act. Alright, so you run up ahead to the point where you can see them kind of walking, dodging and weaving through the flying arrows, and drop down prone onto the battlefield, pretending to play dead. However, Corrosia, in her infinite chaos, decides instead to taunt the incoming battalion. You begin doing push-ups on the ground as that battalion comes closer. You see their commander, seeing the skeleton now doing push-ups on the ground, calls, "Hold! Calls his group to a halt, and he kind of turns to one of the mages to his right and just kind of gestures a hand. You see the mage kind of turns the their hand around, and a bit of fire begins to glow within it, which they toss in your direction. However, with your new chainmail, the firebolt kind of deflects off some of the chains. They rattle a little bit, and you are not just knocked out in one hit this time. Farfel, tell them they're on your side. The skeleton calls out, "I'm on your side!" Also, use the S command next time, and you can say exactly what you want me to say. And then the Act takes off the right arm and waves to the general in a very silly manner. All right, the arm pops off and begins to wave, and he says, "I was a mage of Zeeth and only wish to become young again." Go ahead and make me a persuasion check, but roll me 2d20, because in conjunction, you guys have basically done the help action as a collective, combining your taking off the right arm and you're saying that you were a mage of Zeeth. So roll me 2d20 and take the higher result. 16, alright. You see the commander of this battalion looks at you and pauses for a moment. "How do we know you have not been corrupted? You were brought back from undeath." Would you undergo a dispel magic? We'll reanimate you, but we have to be certain that you're not being controlled by the enemy. He says to you, what would you have me do? The man kind of turns to the mage who threw that fireball before. He says, take him aside. We could use someone like him. He doesn't feel pain, I would imagine. We don't have a lot of bodies that we can, well, our bodies are generally better preserved. He gestures to that mage, and that individual walks up to you and begins kind of walking off with you into the forest, presumably to dispel magic upon the body, and then re-raise it as an undead in their side, and hopefully preserve the spirit, although if you cared about your spirit, which I assume Corrosia does not care about the spirit of this individual, might be troubling. But as this kind of mage brings you kind of away while the battalion moves on, you now have this mage alone with you. Alright, Act takes the broadsword and tries to stab the mage to eat his throat, and attempts to overpower the mage and grapple him sword to the throat. So in this situation where all of you have acted essentially at the same time, we're going to kind of proffer these one at a time. Go ahead, first Jericho, and roll me a d20 as you take the broadsword and try and stab the mage. Alright, you go to stab into this individual, but as you do so, you see his arm whips upwards, and a magical shield blocks the attack. He kind of... Wait! He kind of calls out to some of his battalion that was moving away, and goes to step back and try and regroup. However, you're only 1 pound out so far, Jericho. As you run away, the skeleton continues to pursue and attempt to eat the throat. Eat the throat of this individual. So you're going to run and try and eat the throat. Go ahead and now you, Lance, roll me. Go ahead and roll me a d20. 11. Alright, you go up to kind of bite onto him and go to kind of go up and grab the individual, but he's moving a little bit too quick and you can't get a strong bite around the throat as of yet. And this individual is now continuing to move away from you. He's taking, like, basically the disengage action, and then just running to kind of prevent opportunity attacks would be the equivalent in this situation. But he's trying to regroup with his battalion. You see a couple from his battalion are turning now and looking back at the group of you that are pursuing him. But one more attempt. Attempt to overpower and grapple him, sword to the throat. Go ahead, Bionic Shiva, and roll me that d20. Oh no! None of you got it. Yeah, you go to grab onto him and pull him to the ground and take this individual out of the fight. But unfortunately at this point, kind of seeing a bit of weakness at this point, as that attempt was fairly pathetic. What seemed to be a bit more of a sentient skeleton, the mage kind of turns around and is going to make an attack against you. Additionally, 2 others. The firebolt from this mage's hand whizzes over your shoulder. However, the 2 approaching from the battalion come up. One of them with a warhammer, a swing to the hip, and the bones in your hip and rib cage shatter. And the other, a short sword slashing across the neck, lobs off. And we're on pawn 464. 4564. Pawn number 3. Press F to pay respects for that pawn. So, in order to... the way that this is going to kind of work is anything that you guys have already done, you can do. So, if you want to say, like, you don't have to roll for it, for example, in order to kind of trick that warband. You don't have to roll for it in order to find that chainmail, and you know where these things are. So, Act, get that chainmail. You go back and you get the chainmail and you put it back on. That's exactly correct. So, you guys get, like, kind of a half save on progress. Question, where is there a magic academy? There is a magic academy in the city of, I don't know, oh god, I can't remember the name of the city. The city, Zeef's capital city. I cannot remember the name of it off the top of my head at the moment. But it is in the kind of the floating rivers around it, a city stuck in time. There's a magic academy there. Also, there's a question before, would we have any magic we could use? At the moment, you have access to no spells. You begin walking off in the distance towards the Magic Academy, moving in the direction of Zeef. It is about, for you on Skeleton, it is about a 3 months walk. Look for wand/means of magic as we go. Go ahead and make me another investigation check, or make me an investigation check reflected. You speak. I will become the best mage ever, the skeleton says. 14. Alright, as you're staring around the space, you see the bodies of some kind of downed mages. They're carrying things like spellcasting focuses and stuff like that, but without a ton of skill at magic, it's going to be a little bit tough. So you pick up a wand for yourself to focus through. But as you're looking around these bodies, you do manage to find one spell scroll. Something that they were probably saving for a bit of a rainy day. You have gained one casting of the fireball spell. Ambush another mage so far. Go ahead and roll me an investigation. By Shiba, or perception. At this point it is irrelevant, to find another kind of individual that you're able to... Actually, no, because you've already found mages, you're able to find one again. And this is another thing I want to say. Attempting the same thing in the same way, if it failed the first time, I'm going to rule that it will fail the second time. So each time you go at this, you gotta find a new way to get at it. So you'll have to find, like, a new approach method. So I'll say you can find the individuals because you're successful at that, but going up to them and, you know, kind of trying to pull one off in the way that you did last time, you'll have to find a new kind of method of doing so. But you found a mage. Do you want to... Act, slice off wizard's arm to use the magic in it. Go ahead and roll me an attack. Keep in mind that, as I said, this guy is in with a party. 14. Okay, so you run up to this dude and swing downwards with the kind of the broadsword that you were handed originally by Asher Pyle, because you picked that up as well, I'm just going to assume. You slice down with it, and you manage to lob this wizard's arm off. They're kind of bleeding, they kind of scream, "Oh god! Oh god!" Immediately, the surrounding individuals whip around. Well, hold on a second. Immediately, the surrounding individuals, as I said, this person was with a party, they whip around and obliterate skeleton number 4564. Yep, we can just now assume that all of the skeletons now have chainmail and a broadsword because you have picked those things up. Welcome to skeleton 4565. You pick up chainmail and a broadsword. And a fireball scroll. So you go back to your old skeleton body, collect the things that you had at that point, and there's a mage arm there as well. Are you going to replace arm with wizard's arm? Alright. You have mage arm. You go and kind of go to put it onto your skeleton arm. You got it right about the elbow. So when you cut it off there, you take off the bone and try and put the wizard's arm on. You get it so that it's kind of fixed in by, like, kind of sticking the bones in, but it doesn't really function as an arm on its own. It's just kind of like flopping around. Mage arm sounds like the level up for mage hand. That's excellent. I agree that it does sound like that. Get Asher to bond the arm to us. Alright, so you go back and find Asher. Asher is about, Asher is kind of about the space looking for, just looking for more kind of dead bodies, because he's basically just rezzing for you. And he looks at you and just kind of goes, "You want me to replace your bone arm with a flesh arm? Why don't you just have me res you as a zombie? Why do you do these? It is not for me to question." And you watch as he kind of takes your old skeleton arm away, and the flesh arm is placed upon it. "The flesh arm is magic. We want to do magic. This is a mage arm," the skeleton says, and that arm is placed upon yours. You now have a weird, meaty, fleshy arm on your skeleton. This is a one-time buff, but currently you have a mage arm, which I will say you are allowed to cast the next 3 cantrips that you guys type into chat with said mage arm. 1 per person. We have a firebolt. Thunderclap. I don't know how it works. You'll have to tell me. And shocking grasp. Ooh, very offensive. I like it. All right. So, with your weird flesh arm, this is a one-time buff. Flesh arm would require action to replace it. No worries. Yes, speak. How can we get in contact with Avernon? I need a mount. Asher kind of looks at you. You think that Avernon the Undying would want to be ridden by a lowly skeleton? You have great control over myself and Avernon, Corrosia. But I do not think his pride would allow such a thing. However, last I saw him, he was laying siege up north to the camps of Paylin. Shocking Grasp. Oh no, Shocking Grasp is definitely a cantrip. Alright, you begin... Alright, so you begin journeying north through the battlefield. And as you move around the, space, you are beginning to see a shift. As you're... Right now, you're in the heart of the battlefield, and it's just conflict all around you. But as you kind of continue a little bit farther north, you begin to move out of the Ironvale trees proper. While the Ironvale forest is most well known for its core, these great metal trees, as you begin to move a little bit farther north, where you're kind of walking, you're moving into regular forest now. And this is kind of truly Oniara's terrain that you're moving into. And as you're stepping into this space, you begin to hear voices speaking around you. You hear things like, "Corrupted one. He walks with the undead queen. Should he be destroyed?" And these voices are they just seem to be kind of coming from the space all around you. Question, what... You ask what the airspeed velocity of an unladen swallow is, and Corrosia knows that it depends on a lot of varieties for that, and there's really the big question would be African or European, but Corrosia is definitely aware of that. Hunt for raven owlbird with good eyesight. Alright, as these kind of things, these voices in the forest around you are continuing to seemingly judge you as you walk around, you look around for a raven or owl or bird with good eyesight. What you see in this kind of part of the forest as we're getting into a more natural terrain, you do manage to find actually a hawk that is kind of perched among the trees. attempts to tame the hawk. All right, go ahead and roll me animal handling. A 3. You begin kind of climbing the tree that you're in right now. You begin kind of climbing the tree that you're in right now, and as you do so, you kind of pick up your arm and go to do the things where, you know, the hawk would land on your arm as you're just kind of like holding your hand up, but it looks down at you, horrifying skeleton, and goes and latches its claws kind of immediately into your arm before flying off. Yeah, unfortunately you don't tame the hawk. And as you kind of do that, the tree that you're climbing, as this is Oniares' forest, kind of begins its branches begin to shift, as do some of the ones around you. You see some of the roots starting to spread and kind of take over the ground in this space. Oop, whoop, wah, wah, everything's all over the place. Attempts to tame the hawk. Offer strip of mage flesh to help tame. Has already run away. Throw sword at hawk before it gets away. Roll me an attack with disadvantage. Sheba, roll me an attack with disadvantage. And then Jericho, roll me just an attack. Uh, 10. Unfortunately, your tossed broadsword in the air does not manage to get the flying hawk. However, actually the firebolt also misses, yeah. I just assumed the firebolt was gonna hit. The firebolt flies upwards and also does not hit the hawk. As it kind of flies up in the trees, the kind of cover from the trees protecting it to a degree, as these woodlands are pretty thick. At this point, the roots are beginning to kind of spread out around your feet. You see... attempts to catch the broadsword as it's falling. You do so. It's radical. You can have that one. But the roots around your feet are beginning to kind of coil up, and you see some of them trying to, like, latch onto your feet. You see something akin to a face begin to appear on one of the trees around you. Who steps into our forest now? The tree kind of looks at you, and as the roots seem to be trying to work their way up around your legs. You speak. A former follower of Oniares. Just a friendly mage. The trees continue to kind of coil around you a little bit. Is that so? Why do you believe in Oniares? What is your cause? I come seeking Mother Goose. She called for assistance, you say. The trees kind of begin to uncoil a little bit. Mother Goose sees about her duties tirelessly. I've never heard her ask for help before. They kind of bend and wave a little bit back and forth. We seek to learn the ways of natural magic so we may be restored to life. And the wars nearby threatened her project. At this point, I'll say you can make a persuasion check as you're kind of dealing with this tree. Uh, 15. At this point, the roots that were beginning to wrap around, and you could tell would probably have crushed you instantly, begin to uncoil as you have kind of worked your way past the tree here. However, rather than the direction that you were kind of moving north, you watch as you watch as the leaves and kind of roots and branches of these trees begin to kind of pull backward and form you a path leading a little bit more easternward. Apparently, this is the location of, well, Mother Goose's nest egg, so to speak. They seem to be leading you that way. Do you kind of follow the path that... very well. You begin to walk east, kind of through and amongst these leaves as you follow this path. As you do so, it seems that they are very much making their way for you, as they're kind of spreading out and clearing space. The battle around you always seems to stay on your outskirts, as the trees are protecting you through, kind of protecting you through this forest. Until eventually the trees kind of lead you into a fairly large clearing, and at the center of this clearing is one tree that's a bit larger than the rest of it. It curls upward and twists, the leaves forming up a large canopy that covers the rest of the space. And within you can see an opening that seems to lead down into it. Very well. You begin to proceed downward and into the tree. As you're walking amongst the roots that seem to grow deep and deep and deep into the ground, they kind of coil around, forming something akin to stairs. Question: How do you attach the Terrast egg? That is something that Corrosia does not know how to do. That has been taking Oniaras a long time to get going. So you are uncertain. As you continue to follow the spiral staircase downwards, it leads into some very strange paths where the roots along the walls create hallways and various openings, but in the distance you can hear something that sounds like a very light singing, kind of a You follow this voice until you move upwards and into kind of a larger space, a much larger space. As within it there is a massive, what looks like stone egg. You know that it's an egg. And kind of curling around and out from the side of it, you see a kind of druid walking around, kind of humming and singing. She's kind of like laying hands on it in different places. It seems that you were right. She seems to be doing a lot of work to kind of maintain it at the moment. You speak upwards. The Forest Father sent us as protection from the battles in the Iron Vale. What do you need to help your project here? Who is this druid? This druid is Mother Goose, the keeper of Oniaras' egg. And of course, Oniaras' egg, he plans to someday hatch into a Terrast to turn the entirety of the war in his favor. But Mother Goose is the egg's keeper. So, as you call out about the Forest Father and how you're sent to protect, the kind of Mother Goose kind of stops cooing. She didn't even seem to have noticed you walked in, very focused on what she's doing. She kind of turns and looks to you.
The egg is well. There's not much needed for me to do. The project is, well, of course it could be completed at any time. The Forest Father gets too concerned about its safety. I know how it is. Your protection is appreciated, though it must be kept safe for when all is ready. Our Oniaras. Someday this will be his greatest child.
Can you teach us anything so we can be of more assistance to help alleviate the Forest Father's concerns?
If you wish to care for it, it requires a good deal of magic to, keep it right here nice and stable. The egg's been ready for some years now. I have to slow things down a bit, keep life moving, but at a very minor pace. If you knew how to do that, you could watch over the egg for me. and I wouldn't have to do anything.
Action begins following Mother Goose, trying to learn and doing their best soldier march. Go ahead and roll me just an intelligence check, so just a d20, but I guess the answer is always roll me a d20, but I just like to say what check it is anyway. Alright, you begin kind of... you begin looking around. You're trying your best to kind of reach up and learn and try and copy the movements, but without the years of training in this particular magic that she has been spending, kind of dedicated her life to, is protecting this egg. You don't think that you would be able to just pick it up instantly, but you say, what happens if the egg's advancement isn't slowed, you say?
Well, if the egg's advancement isn't slowed, it would be soon that the egg hatches. Well, perhaps another year? Of course, it could be sped up as well. But I don't believe Oniares is ready for that.
Where Corrosia. Yeah, so the gist you're getting is that if you had some kind of magic to speed it up a little bit, if you had some magic to kind of speed this up, because right now right now you get the idea it's being intentionally held back. So if you if you killed Mother Goose, it would spawn a lot sooner, and if you found some other magic that could like speed up the life cycle, or and otherwise kind of affect the time of this thing, you could perhaps do that. Speech, if we want to hatch it, why not let it do its thing naturally, you say?
Oniares, I don't believe, is ready to hatch the egg. When he is, we will allow it to do so.
I'll say, what is, you say, what is the greatest threat to the egg right now? You're saying, as you're kind of stepping back, and as you're moving away, Mother Goose kind of looks at you and just goes,
"This battle is, well, a great deal. I also very much fear Zeeth. Well, her time magic. She could hatch the egg right now if she wanted."
And as you're, as you step back and go and toss the fireball scroll, it clatters into the space. You hear kind of Mother Goose just honk, honk, honk. You see kind of wings on this druid. Her arms were sort of kind of had kind of feather patterned clothings on them, but all of a sudden she just like her arms start flapping outwards, and you see they almost become real wings as she begin kind of floating up in the space and comes into this strange, almost harpy-like transformation, where you see her upper body is kind of wings and her lower body has claws. Her head elongates into the form of a massive goose. So, after casting the fireball, say, "The greatest threat is us!" And there's a great guitar sting, as you are now in a dire battle with the Mother Goose. And let me get some nice dramatic music. All right. You throw the fireball, you see it spreads around the space. Mother Goose's body is kind of massively singed, and you see also the egg itself has some pretty significant scorch marks on the outside of it. However, it's her turn to act, and on her turn, what is she gonna do? She throws out... You see she... Oh, yes. My apologies. She tosses out a whip of what seems to be thorns that go to coil and wrap around you, and kind of drag you closer. However, the thorn whip actually misses. Try and firebolt dry brush around to start a fire. Alright. You look around, realizing the foe before you might be a little bit too powerful for you, even with your mighty flesh arm. You toss out a firebolt, and it crashes into some of the surrounding brush. The brush ignites and begins to kind of take. You see as smoke begins to fill out the space. A Mother Goose just honk, honk, and she seems very upset about this. And on her turn, is going to... the next person to roll me a d20 will be making the dexterity... the Constitution saving throw. Oh god. In an act of what seemingly remorse, as Corrosia begins to feel guilty, a hand is placed outwards, holding some bread to offer to the goose in the space. Unfortunately, it is too late, as at this point, Mother Goose, a great druidic moonbeam appears over, and all that is left of this skeleton is a piece of bread that, from a camera point of view, you do see Mother Goose come over and enjoy that bread, but we're on pawn number 4566. All right. You're beginning to kind of find some feet in this world. You can get back to that chamber at any time freely. Additionally, you can get kind of the fireball. The fireball you no longer have access to. That was a one-time use scroll. Chainmail and broadsword, and also for the record, Magic Academy is not in this area. That would be like a multi-month journey. You'd have to have some kind of you would have to have some kind of like teleportation to get out of this area. But the act, you get your chainmail and broadsword. Yeah, you get chainmail and broadsword again. You're on your base. You have your baseline stats. You no longer have flesh arm. Tries to find a glaive to replace the broadsword. Yeah, you switch to a two-hander. Yep, that's fine. You can just do that. Searching around the battlefield, that's easy. Heads back towards Avernon in the forest. You encounter the trees once more. Last time, the way that you kind of coerced the trees was by telling them that they were kind of friends of Mother Goose. That you were friends of Mother Goose and working towards them, and so they guided you to Mother Goose. Action. While going there, attempts to find another spell scroll. Go ahead and make me an investigation check. And I'll say you guys can do this once per life. 14. Alright, as you're looking around the space, the spell scroll that you find this time, it appears to be a spell scroll of the fly spell. And you do manage to find one. Answer. Unfortunately, as I said, you no longer have your fleshy arm. Or actually, you know what? I'll say that you can get yourself another fleshy arm. I think that's more fun. So you have your thunderclap, and as you're running through the forest, you begin kind of damaging the roots. Go ahead and... this is going to be a spellcasting ability check. Go ahead and roll that for me. 10. You're trying to just crash through and destroy the roots of the trees as you move forward. However, there's a lot of trees, and as you're kind of trying to brush them off, the roots are whipping up and kind of hitting into the side of you. You feel one strike like the hips of the skeleton. DnDTime bot is rigged. Yeah, I know your fleshy arm has fireball. I'd originally said that the fleshy arm was a 1-life buff, but I'll say that you get a fleshy arm again. So you begin heading north. Yeah, unfortunately, the trees kind of stop your progress, and you feel the. Is that just standard now? Yeah, we'll say that the fleshy arm is standard now. The roots whip up and begin kind of curling around your body, and you feel the roots begin to entangle you as you're moving through the forest. This time, it's very clear that you're an enemy as you've been kind of thunderclapping and blowing up the roots. What do you do? Firebolt the roots. Go ahead and make me an attack roll, Jericho. There's been no 1s or 20s yet. 8. You go down to kind of firebolt the roots. The trees are, well, obviously they don't do in particularly well with fire, but then again, at the same time, there's a heavy rainfall still in the space. And as you firebolt into the trees, it does not seem to catch. And they're going to... you're not dead yet, but you feel yourself being crushed and your bones starting to splinter. What do you do? Praise towards Zeeth to let us free. This is going to be a tough one, but I'll give it to you on a 19 or 20. 14, nothing happens. Slice roots curling around the body. Go ahead and make me an attack roll. Oh no! You spin and begin to curve the sword around the roots that are entangling you. However, as the trees look at you, you will return to the earth. And we're on skeleton number 4, 5, 6, 7. Rough. That was a rough one. Oh no! Oh, everything is still well. We're on 4, 5, 6, 7. So you collect your fleshy arm, you collect your broadsword, and so on. You get a glaive. You pick up your fly spell scroll. Actually, no, you have to get through the forest to grab that spell scroll. So that one's gone. Make an investigation check. See what you get. $17. Ooh. You find a spell scroll of banishment. How wide is the forest? You are in the midst of the forest. You are basically in the core of the space here. Because the Iron Vale forest, the center of it, the part where the trees are iron and Oniaris does not have control over them, is a very kind of tight middle of the forest. And so you are basically surrounded on all sides by these trees. So you're going to need some way... Alright, goes to Mother Goose's chamber. You're there. You've been kind of... you've been able to, once again follow the same path. Oh god, alright. You go down into the chamber, and Mother Goose looks at you. Another one! And you roll the banish. I'm gonna have you roll, because I think it's more interesting if there's some roll for you and not just me rolling in secret to save. So why don't you roll for me a d20, and that will be what Mother Goose rolled on her save. So you're trying to roll low on this one, Shiva. Hey, you can count on you to roll low. And it's a charisma save, too, so that's actually really good. Mother Goose looks at you and just goes, "Hua, hua," and begins kind of flapping wings again when she sees another skeleton walk in. However, she is banished, and now gone in the space, and you are alone with the egg. It's not raining in here. You begin firebolting the egg. Fire courses out from your hands and crashes into it. The egg seems to be made of some fairly tough stuff. Again, you begin searching around for a crack in the eggshell. Both of you roll me d20s. A 7, a 7, and a 16. All right, so you're throwing firebolts at the eggs, and as they hit into the side of it, for the most part, this is the egg of a Tarrasque. The firebolts kind of are whacking into it and jumping off of it. Additionally, you hear a popping sound, by the way, as you had banished Mother Goose. Apparently, banish in this place is just gonzo, because this place is a weird demi-plane that was created, so no one is actually native to this plane. So she's definitely, she's out of commission for a while. So Mother Goose is gone, but you see that you're beginning to make, a little bit of progress, but what you learn from this is that this is probably not a way to get into this egg. You're gonna need some kind of magic, or some kind of druid, or, just someone else in order to get this egg to, you're gonna need some kind of tool. What is Mother Goose saying? Mother Goose is saying nothing, as Mother Goose has been banished to a far-off plane. You climb up to the top and hop onto the egg and begin to sit upon it. You see, as you're looking in the space, you see on top of the egg, there are some runes that are written on the top of it. As you kind of sit on them, they begin to glow to a small degree, but they don't actually seem to have any major effect at the moment, but there's definitely some magic involved in sitting on this egg. You're gonna focus a firebolt to try and warm your butt to make it comfy for the egg. Alright, this is gonna be a fine line between destroying yourself and making your butt warmer. So go ahead and roll me that d20. Oh! You light your hands just a tiny bit, and kind of place them underneath and begin to kind of, feel the bones and just the slightest bit of warmth. Just right to the point where the bones, or, a lot of warmth, right to the point where the bones, before they would break. And you heat up your butt and you begin to sit on this egg. And as you do so, you see the kind of patch on top of it, these runes atop the egg. You see them beginning to glow more and more. And you're starting to think that, yes, this was how Mother Goose would have hatched the egg in an instant if she had wanted to. She would have just gone up and sat on the egg. And as the kind of the heat of your now even warmer butt begins to sit upon this, the runes are glowing brighter and brighter. As you attempt to read the runes, make a history or make an arcana check. You've been on just a low streak on rolls for not just this game, but all games, Sheba, as of late. But yeah, you're unable to make out the runes, unfortunately, although you can tell that the more heat that you're putting into this kind of point on top of the egg, the more these runes are starting to glow and activate. It seems like, you're kind of getting somewhere with this, but it seems like you would need one more big kind of heat source in order to, like, make this happen. What do? All right. You find a torch. Yeah, I'll say you do so. I mean, you just break off an old piece of wood, and you begin lighting it up, and then you create a little fire on top of the egg, and you sort of take off. You step out of the space. Walking in and out, the trees no longer seem to bother you in this space, because, well, they assume that you were here for business, and you've concluded it, and you're an ally, so you can do what you will from here on. Alright, you continue to head north. As you're working your way through the forest... question, is the egg appearing to hatch? As you were looking at it when you were leaving, the fire on top of the... the fire kind of on top of the egg itself, you're not sure how... you're not sure kind of how effective it was going to be, but it seemed to be activating the runes in a slightly better... in a slightly better way, at least, than just kind of sitting on it with the hot butt was. So you think you're moving in the right direction for sure. Have a good night, Lance. And you, in that case, you continue north. As you're moving north through the forest, you're beginning to notice a lot different sort of detritus on the battlefield here. You can see the spare parts, and you can see the spare parts and kind of shattered pieces of kind of various robots, of various robots that were presumably, you know, the ground troops of Palin's army, perhaps the first forces to really do battle in the space. And as you continue more and more, the thing that you find is what appears to be, well, well, isn't he a great one? That's true. You have to think like Evernon is a great one, he's just a great guy. Whoop. Just fixing this a little bit because I see that got a little out of whack. Whoop. Why do you keep doing this to me? This thing just will not line up for me. Oh well. Alright, so, the thing that you see, it appears to be some kind of metal fortress, but on top of its head, it has these little vents that seem to be spouting out steam. And the reason I say head, even though it's a fortress, is it seems to be shaped in something vaguely resembling a creature. You can see around it, buzzing and kind of moving around you in the forest, there are these very small bring, these tiny little robots that are running around, circular in shape, monodrones of the Modrons, for those familiar, carrying kind of logs and pieces of wood and just any kind of materials, iron and swords and the bodies of their fallen brethren over to this huge furnace that seems to be kind of almost a creature in the way that it's formed, and carrying them and tossing them in. Part of it lighting the fires, the bellows of this huge machine, and part of it just kind of the various Modrons are attempting to... are attempting to kind of fuel it, and it seems in turn that this machine is creating more of these things in the space. Attempt to take a drone as a servant. You reach down and just grab onto one of them and pick it up, and you hold it in front of you. It's just saying, bring, and it's holding what looks like what looks like just kind of an odd metal trinket that it picked off of somebody's body. I'm going to throw it in to perhaps make it scrap. You follow the drones back to that kind of furnace, which is where you are. That seems to be where they're heading, yeah, you're in this space. This seems to be kind of their war machine from where they're mounting their offensive here in this part of the forest. And as that's happening, would we know how to reprogram it? You don't, know for certain, but you do know enough about monodrones to know that they take exactly one command at a time. So if you could kind of in some way convince it to follow a new command, it would follow it perfectly. The skeleton begins chanting with the drones, "Bring, bring, bring." Also, hello, Jeremy. And as this is happening in the space, you see some of the trees over on the side of the kind of opening where this machine is erected. You see some of the trees begin to just lose their color and wilt as swooping in from the top. You can see a very old and powerful and terrifying Draco Lich swoop across the sky as it breathes death on this little chunk of the forest. It flies upward and away, and chasing after it, you see a huge metal axe seems to be thrown through the air, and Avernon dives and kind of ducks out of the way of this thing, which flies over his shoulders and which flies over his shoulders and into the forest and crashes from beyond. And as Avernon kind of lets out a "You will bow before Corrosia!" You see another much larger drone walk out of the forest, trees just kind of crumbling in its wake, as one of the oracles of Pelin walks into the space, one Inspector Mahler, a massive... I love you guys. A massive, towering metal golem, dragging behind it a huge maul. At its kind of back, there are several kind of axes and javelins as it's chasing after, following Avernon into the skies. You pull out the drone and tell it to chase. Go ahead and make me a persuasion check on said drone. If you do well enough. An 11. You tell it to chase. And you begin kind of chanting in the way that was before you were doing bring. You just kind of switch it. They're just going bring, bring, and you just start going chase, 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 bring, bring, bro, bra, chase, 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 chase. And this monodrone begins chasing after this fright, kind of walking a little bit bumbly on the ground as it moves in the direction of this conflict that is very, very far above its pay grade. Oh, it's raining once more. And that monodrone continues to run. What do you guys? Vernon, Corrosia requires a mount. You scream it into the heavens. He seems a little bit distracted at the moment, but considering who you are, I'll say that you have enough Corrosia has enough influence to also kind of speak to Avernon in this moment, even though she's focused, to make it clear that you're heard. So you call above the rain and the battle as Inspector Mahler kind of takes his huge-ass maul and swings it up at Avernon, who's, like, dodging around in the sky, moving back and forth. And Avernon just kind of looks down in your direction and just, "The audacity! I am Avernon the Undying, not somebody's horse!" What do you say? The skeleton begins to dance. Make a performance check. A 10. The dance is alright. Avernon, amidst the kind of chaos of this battle, is a little bit confused, but we need a net. You're the only one big enough to carry something for us. You will obey me, you scaly underling. Now look at me dance! Oh wait, you used the dance bot. I feel like that grants you advantage. I will give you another chance. It does not guarantee success, but I'll give you another opportunity to dance. Maybe another performance check. You've hacked into the mainframe. Oh no! Yeah, Avernon does not seem to overly impressed with the dancing. Your 10 remains, but it's not bad. Yeah, you're definitely doing the jig. The little kind of metal drone is just follow. I mean, chase, chase, chase. And it's getting very close. You see, it's kind of like dodging in and out of the steps of Inspector Mahler, who's kind of relentlessly battling with Avernon right now. Inspector Mahler kind of pulls back the maul and goes to swing it up. He kind of calls out, "And so your justice is decreed." The maul swings up and down, crashes in. The dirt flies and scatters up into the air. Trees break and crack and fall. Avernon, you see in his turn, you see some of the various, other creatures around the battlefield. He seems to move his hands upwards, controlling his claws, moving in almost a humanoid-like way. As they pull up, you see various skeletons and other kind of undead begin to raise in the space that all kind of move up to Inspector Mahler. None of them seem to be overly impactful, if anything, just slowing him down slightly. Attempt to distract Avernon in order to give them an advantage in the fight. Hey, Mahler, your gears aren't as shiny as your horrible white Jesus. Hey, whoa! Let's not use some of those words. But you insult Inspector Mahler's gears. Go ahead and make me an intimidation check with advantage, because Shiva did the exact same thing at the exact same time. A natural 20. You watch as Inspector Mahler turns and looks. I don't comprehend. I do not have spouses. And as they kind of turn to look, in your direction, you see Avernon kind of runs in, and the huge kind of dragon claws pierce downwards into the front of their armor and kind of pull it a bit aside, and Avernon just kind of dragon breaths directly into kind of the front of the armor, and you watch as Inspector Mahler just kind of falls and goes down on the battlefield. You know that Inspector Mahler has quite a few iterations. He's probably not dead forever, as you know. But of course, our dear friend Arcarus. Of course, Arcarus will at some point resurrect him, but Avernon kind of crashes down. Question, how much can Modrons lift? Not much. They can lift like one weapon's worth, like 10 pounds. Modrons are a mage hand's worth of weight. Avernon crashes down to the ground and looks at you, and the head just kind of leans forwards and stares as he kind of expectantly waiting for you to say whatever it is you're going to say. We need you to carry, so you say, we need you to carry something for the forge. Yeah, it's not too big of a deal, Jericho. I tend to avoid ones that, you know, your shits and your so on and so forth. Those are fine, but most swears are fine. Just ones that kind of have, things attached to them, like some, politics attached to them. But aside the point, sorry, I got a weird text. I got distracted for a second. No, you're fine, no big deal. The dragon, Avernon, kind of tears apart the chest of this robot and looks down at you, and you say, we need you to carry something for us to the forge. Avernon, make a persuasion check. Oh God. Oh God. Avernon looks at you. Avernon looks at you and just... you watch as the life is drained out of your skeleton body as you have insulted Avernon this day. And this particular skeleton is no longer alive. We're on 4-5-68. And the end. A new skeleton arrives, Asher Pyle, who has kind of seen this because he's also one of Corrosia's. As he raises this skeleton, just kind of laughs and speaking to you as if speaking to Corrosia, just... I told you it wasn't a good idea to insult his pride. Where do you want to be? You have a lot of, save points, so to speak, now. Yeah, how dare you betray your master as you fall. Go grab a Modron. You got a Modron. You're back in that zone. Avernon is still in the space. You put Modron in front of the egg and chant bring, bring, bring. Alright, you grab a Modron. You say bring, bring, bring. You bring it back to the egg. On the way, it bounces like a basketball and shatters. You have to go back and get another one. And when you get back, you see Avernon still in the space, looking like he's doing some work with some of the corpses here, raising them as undead. And you say, I'm back, you scaly oaf. Is the Modron a part of our normal gear now? The Modron isn't part of your gear, but the ability to tell a Modron to do something is a part of your gear. Which is more powerful, really, than a single Modron, as I think Shiva is going down a particular route. Now, Shiba, if you want to just repeat last step, yeah, I suspected. I understand where this one was going, and this is something that you can just do. Although doing it on a scale necessary to move that egg, you're going to need something to get a lot of them at once. So you're going to need to figure out some trick to get all of them to go there. give it to you. You build a net. You take, and more than you build a net, you find, since there's a lot of adventurers dead on the battlefield here, you just take all of their ropes, so there's some pretty good material for it, and you begin, starts trying to thaumaturgy, find a thaumaturgy fleshy bit. Oh, you're trying to find a new fleshy arm. Make a investigation check. You tell the Modrons to capture Modrons. You watch as each Modron looks around at their fellow Modrons as you're now getting good at capturing, telling them to do things, and you just tell them, like, capture, and you watch as all the Modrons just bring, capture, 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 and basically they all just start kind of hugging each other, and eventually you just end up with a huge pile of Modrons. Monodrones. You say, dance! And the huge pile of Modrons all begin to just kind of dance, dance, and they all just kind of like start wiggling around in the big pile. Any dance moves are indeterminate. Dance faster seems to be too complicated of an idea for them. You just dance faster, and they're all just there, kind of, just kind of dancing, and then you tell them to follow. And that's how you evolve Magnemite. That is excellent. You're telling them to follow. Are you trying to get them to follow you, or just all continue to crash into each other? Because they're doing a very good job of that so far. With a 12, unfortunately, you're unable to find an appropriate fleshy bit. Yes, alright, so you get one to start following you, and, you know, they all start to kind of take on this thing, and now you have, you're walking in a massive dancing conga line of Mondrons back across the battlefield. Very conspicuous if you hadn't already aligned yourself with the trees in this space, who allow you to pass easily. If you hadn't kind of finally figured out how to get past the trees, you would all be slaughtered as you go through. Can we get some conga music? You know what? We can. I think I have just the track for this. As you move through the forest, this absolutely ridiculous line of Modrons just follow, dancing and walking each other through the ever-growing trees. You move downwards and into, well, the Mother Goose's chamber, and as you do so, you now have just a huge pile of monodrones in front of this Tarrasque egg. You see that the Tarrasque egg, the top of it, is starting to glow more and more as the fire that you created on it seems to be not instantly, but definitely like starting to activate more of the runes on the top of this egg. As the Modrons are now just kind of hanging out in the space. Bring. You watch as your countless army of monodrones begins to bring. They pick up the egg, and you're now noticing that while they're single-minded in the way that they approach a task, as in they will only do one thing, they're a little bit more intelligent in the way that they attempt to execute it. And as they say, bring, it seems like they start to understand, like, the implications of that, and they begin lifting up the egg, using, the combined might of a ton of these things, and other ones are, like, beginning to, like, dig out the sides and create a large enough space for it to actually fit out through the passage that you came in. Alright, you get out of the way of the egg, you kind of move to the side, and now there's just there's just kind of a time frame now in which you're just waiting and watching your task be done. Is there anything you want to do while you're waiting for the egg to be brought out? Dig a hole. Any particular specific? You just look down and begin burrowing into the ground. What's everyone else doing? Bury self. Is this... Corrosia has the power to kill a skeleton. At any times, if you guys want to abandon one, you can just... Speak, hey Vernon, I know you didn't want me to ride you, but we should probably get going soon. I'm gonna say make me a persuasion check with advantage, as at this point, as the egg is kind of crusting out into the larger space, all of the kind of surrounding trees are looking at it with kind of trepidation, and they're kind of moving and spreading out a little bit. And that's enough, I'll say, to get Avernon's attention, and Avernon kind of begins flying over. You have this egg out in the open. You have this egg out in the open now in the pouring rain, and Avernon is there. The trees have cleared a huge space, just moving away, knowing kind of what is to come, and not understanding why this is in Oniara's plan, but it must be, as the Mother Goose has allowed you to go out and do what you have done. It must be the time. Avernon is there. He crashes down onto the ground next to where you all are. Once the put net over egg and try to... I will say this, though, you do not, with your own ability, like, you've put the net over the top of the egg, but you didn't... you don't have enough time to make a net big enough for this egg. This is a big egg. This is the egg of a gargantuan creature. World-endingly gargantuan creature. So, if you have some way to kind of improve the quality of your egg, get a small group of outlier Modrons, convince them to stand on top of each other's shoulders, and create a Modron tower. Done. Easily done. Actually, that's going to be a roll for... that's actually going to be the Modrons to roll to see how well they're able to... do this. Okay, it's done. The Modrons begin piling up on top of each other to... No! You hear the countless whirring of stack, 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 crash, 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 crash down to the ground as you've slaughtered countless Modrons in this moment. Actually, get more Modrons to make a flying throne. The Modrons all just died when they all got stacked up, and then... Oh, I'm sorry, there's a small group of outlier Modrons. You just killed a few Modrons. Make a flying throne. They don't have the ability to fly. They just walk around on tiny little spindly metal legs. Avernon kind of looks to you at this point and goes, "Why have you brought me here? Why is this here?" Looking to the egg. A climb in Avernon's mouth. Get on everyone to watch the end of the world from the sky. I think those two things are not mutually exclusive. You climb into Avernon's mouth, and as you do so, Avernon's... but the words... yes, you attach the throne to Avernon. It's on his back, but unfortunately... you put the throne on his back, but unfortunately you're riding in his mouth. You say, "Fly, the egg is getting close." Avernon flies upwards, and within Avernon's mouth, you begin to dance, as I think we're arriving very near our conclusion. One Modron still rides with you in the mouth, one sweet memory by Corrosia of the chaos that she wreaked throughout the battlefield this day. And as you kind of storm upwards and kind of climb into the sky, You catch for a brief moment, you fly above the rain, and you can see kind of the setting sun, very kind of glorious, high up above the battle. All of the kind of distant fighting grows a little bit softer. And as you're kind of in the process of... That's a very good joke. That's how you get mono. As you're kind of ducking back down beneath the clouds, riding this ancient undead Draco Lich, you hear below you a mighty roar. The egg is taller than even the tallest of trees, so you can see it's kind of sticking out, and you can see out of the top of it as it begins to crack, the giant mouth of an ancient beast begin to emerge. A Godzilla-like roar erupts throughout the space. You hear a lot of the combat below completely cease. We're parents. You firebolt the Tarrasque. Go ahead and roll me a d6, if you would. When you get a 4. All right. It doesn't reflect back and kill you. Which I was not gonna lie that I was hoping that it would reflect back and get you. But what can I say? So the as the Tarrasque roars and flies outward, as the Tarrasque roars and the egg crashes around it, it lets out another and begins trampsing through the forest. You watch as soldiers begin gathering up and forming huge ranks. The various dregs of the battle. You see in the distance a great sphinx. You see the form. You see the form of. Oh God, what's the sphinx's name? I can't remember it at the moment. All is gone. All is gone. Crandor, the Eternal King, kind of begin flying over to the space. You can see the war camps of Tizel moving and kind of encroaching in as the Tarrasque begins to wreak its absolute havoc. Bodies fly. Huge bodies fly. Trees are ripped. The very ironwood trees of the Ironvale forest are plucked from the ground. As this Tarrasque begins to destroy the entirety of the Ironvale forest. You, of course, jumping out of the mouth and downwards, you thunderclap and try and destroy the inside of Avernon's mouth as you plunge out of it down towards the Tarrasque far below, which lets out a bellowing roar one last time as into its open mouth this single skeleton falls, which brings us to pawn 4, 5, 6, 9 as the Tarrasque swallows you down easily and continues to single-handedly destroy the rest of the forces in this war. This was Oniares' greatest piece in the battle for Empyrion, played perhaps a bit early, not at the optimal time, but, well, it has shaped the outcome of this place forever. And as one more time you're resurrected, as you emerge and look at the smoke and ruins and ashes of the battlefield you stand on, you dance. And you end on 4-5-69. Nice. And with that, I think you have caused as much chaos as Corrosia is going to cause in the Battle of the Iron Veil. So with that, I would say that we are going to conclude this episode of DnDTime Worlds, which was, for the record, an absolute delight to play with all of you. This was extremely fun to do. The format was very goofy. I'm glad that you guys all really played along and had a lot of fun with it. But this was a blast. Perhaps someday we will do something. We'll do something a little bit more like this, but with more polish, as I kind of, yeah, things are, can we do this again? Yeah, it was fun. Well, I've got to figure out a little bit better how to do it, because this was like, I was thinking for a really long time about what to do today, and I came up with this at the last minute, so I think with a little bit more prep time, we could do more stuff similar to this, if not exactly this, and have some more of these kind of interactive controlling a character things, because it was fun. So, with that, that brings us to the end of the first season of DnDTime Worlds. The world of Empyrion, for anyone who wasn't already aware, was built by all of the people here who've been coming by every week and helping us create this goofy place, like all of those NPCs and stuff. Those were all created by your incredible brains. So thank you to you guys for tuning into Worlds over this run, and for, making it so much fun. And, yeah, that's just about it. I don't have too much else to say. Worlds, I'm not gonna, this is the end of the first kind of chunk of it. I think we're gonna do Worlds again at some point. I don't know if it's gonna be exactly the same. I think we might do a little bit more of a shorter term rather than the long ongoing campaign. And definitely this was a blast, so we'll do... I did like 0.5% of the stuff in there. Well, there's so many things from so many different people, so even that, we appreciate it so much. Jericho, you hanging in and helping us come up with some cool ideas for this. And that world living document is, if people still want to edit it, it is still in the DnDTime Worlds chat. Yeah, you did a lot of it, Sheba. Sheba crushed it. And that's it, if anyone wants to play in the Worlds. If anyone wants to play in the world of Empyrion, it is a very ridiculous place. Perhaps not as ridiculous. No, it's just absolutely absurd. So that's gonna do it for Worlds tonight. And that's also the last Worlds and the last Tuesday stream that I'm gonna be doing until we come back after our little winter break. So unless something changes, but I think it'll probably be done until I'll be done with the Tuesday streams until after we take our little break for winter. But tomorrow you can tune in for DnDTime Talks, which starts at 9:30 Eastern Standard Time, where me and Jeremy are going to be talking about layers, how to make interesting layers and why they're fun, why they're cool, and all that. Will it ever be organized and put into a more neat organization? The answer to that is maybe, if I have time at some point. Although I don't necessarily have there's a lot going on in DnDTime right now. I don't know if I'll have time. But also, what I can do is, if you want to organize it yourself as well, I can make you a copy of it so you can edit it and just message me about that. We can set you up with that after. And maybe I'll just create something that's a little bit more free for everyone to edit freely without my kind of approval on and commenting on it. So that way people can just do what they want with that document and not have it be... kind of locked by what I edit on it. So we'll maybe figure something like that out. And yeah, that's it. Tune in Wednesday to DnDTime Talks, and then tune in on Friday to Pete and Jeremy's DnDTime. I am not going to be there on Friday, but Jeremy will be, and he's going to be running 3 adventures that I know the barest about, but I think will be a lot of fun. I'm excited. And without further ado, I'll just play this theme a little early as kind of this is our fun end credits. One last time, thank you all so much for being a part of DnDTime Worlds. It's been super fun, and Corrosia wins this world. Yeah, perhaps. And so it ends. I'm Pete, and I'm Pete, and this was DnDTime Worlds. Good night, everybody.